Yeah, we were talking the other day about the guidance of the Holy Spirit is always beneficial to everyone. There's no times when any kind of guidance that can come through would provide a gain or a benefit to one and a loss for the other. And yet it takes enormous faith to hang with that, because the mind that is being undone is the egoic mind that thinks it knows anything about anything. Thinks it knows what its own best interests are, it thinks it knows oftentimes direction to move in, and so on and so forth. And so it was good the other day. I know a few of you are new. You weren't here for the one. We had a session about assignments, holy encounters, basic prompts, following prompts for forgiveness and so forth. And when we started to talk about assignments, I think it was Malfried brought up at one point where like she was asking about with her father, because there's a deep connection there, but it's more that she sees it more as an assignment, was really asking the question, than him seeing something there consciously. And I was talking about how with assignments there's definitely a feeling with both that are involved in it, and it's oftentimes a little longer than simply just meetings, short-term meetings. There's definitely some teaching and learning that goes on over a stretch or a period of time. But in all of those assignments, it's like there's a shared experience underneath it all, even though there's different experiences and different emotions that arise for each person during the assignment. And most of the time these are, it would just be called intuitive feelings. I mean, we're just kind of throwing words out for them, but when people feel drawn to somebody for a period of time, it's just like an inner feeling or an inner calling. It can be a very strong feeling, but it doesn't necessarily, you don't have a vocabulary or a way to describe it. We're just trying to put some words to give some of the nuances of it a description. And for us, it just comes from, for me, I know for myself, for years and years and years of working with people, these are the kind of things that I've just observed over the years. And so I just call upon the Spirit to give some words. So for some that is a little bit of help, having a little bit of a framework. Also knowing though that the whole point of all this mind training is to let go of everything you think you know about form and come into an experience of the content of love in your heart. And that form and content they're like opposites in the sense that the more you're invested in form and knowing what the form is and the best form, the less you know about the content. It's kind of like they're in an inverse relationship. And then the more you open up to abstract love, the less you care about the form, the less meaning the form has. And finally, with someone like Jesus, we could say as an example, he became so identified with the content of love that he didn't perceive the differences in form and didn't perceive form as having any kind of significant meaning. He couldn't even see the differences anymore. It was like an agape love, an unconditional love. People could say, oh, what about Jews and Gentiles and apostles and on with all the different categories, but it was just a presence that was literally beyond those differences and saw beyond them all and didn't take any of them seriously. So we do put words out about some of these nuances, but the goal is the same for every one of us, and in one sense the method is the same. We're bringing the darkness to the light. We're bringing up everything that we believe in terms of, they seem to be realities because we've given our mind's energy to them, but we're told they are illusions, and we just have to bring these concepts and these illusions to the light and they will disappear. So that's really the same method for all of us too. How that plays out in form will seem to be highly individualized. So I think the best thing we can say is we just remain as open and transparent about it, and at any point then you can say, well, oh, what about this, or what about that, or how does this work? Overall with assignments, the one guiding rule for me all along has been, the one right use of judgment is how do you feel. So I, much earlier in my life, with the parable of David, I really wasn't that in touch with my emotions, but I became very in touch, because I could see that it was very important for me, that it would be essential actually for me. So yeah, I got to a point, I think, in my journey where I started to be able to suspend the judgments for a bit in terms of quick reactions and judgments, and just start to feel out how I felt. I remember years ago I was with this friend of mine who studied Yogananda and Kriya Yoga, and we were out in California, and I had just come across the course, and we were going, and it just seemed like he was incessantly wanting me to stop and pull over to 7-Elevens to get what I consider just a lot of junk food all the time, peanuts and candy and crackers, and pull over here. And it was always this and this, and there were different things in being with him that I would notice when I got irritated and annoyed, but after a while it came more and more to that place of that my emotions are helping me tap into my guidance and to the Holy Spirit, and I'm going to use those, and I'm going to notice whenever I seem to be annoyed or irritated or confused or anything, and let that be like an inroads into clarity. Yeah. And over time I have to say that has actually worked, and it also, I think the deeper you go inside, the more you feel like you're just watching the world, so it's very much the kind of decisions before that I was like, is this of God or not, or those kind of things, it starts to fall away. Like it's more this serene watching, and the pressure of trying to make the right decision, better make the right decision and everything, that just started to fade and fade and fade. But always, all the way through, the emotions were like a barometer or an indicator, and of course when you're getting into this more, we'll say at the beginning of the mind training, then there seems to be sometimes a lot of thoughts that you're unaware of, and sometimes you get what seem to be like mixed emotions, and it's not so easy to decipher at the beginning. It just takes a lot of faith to hang with the process when that's going on, and more and more a sense of contentment with a stream of thoughts that are in there, and not a concern at all about what's playing out in form. There's more of a detachment, I think, that comes when you get really aligned with the Spirit. It's like you're getting fed, literally, it's the manna from heaven, you're getting fed by these beautiful stream of thoughts from the Spirit, and then the form becomes more and more irrelevant. But during the process of cleaning and clearing your mind, you don't discount anything. You don't just dismiss and say, oh well, I'll figure it out later, or whatever. You stay really present with those emotions. And these kind of assignments are they're like vibrational assignments. So it's like a lot of the relationships that most of us have had when we look back at our life they seem to be genetic, biological relationships, or relationships that were part of circumstances, and they kind of, we pursued our desires and our wishes, or we felt like we had to follow our parents' desires and wishes, and we were locked into a number of different scenarios and situations, and we just tried to make the best of it. But a lot of those relationships, when we step back, we can see that at some point we started to be attracted into relationships that seemed to bring us something that we wanted. Whatever that was, however we defined it, it was definitely an attraction, like they call it the law of attraction, that was attracting us into these things. It wasn't all just random and happenstance, it was very purposeful. And at some point of that, there were things about that we liked and things we didn't like, but at some point, I think when we start to really surrender and say, okay, God, I really don't know my best interest, but you do, and I want you to lead me, we start to feel, I think, from that mindset more and more of these kind of vibrational connections where people are reflecting us back to us the things that we need to know. They're a way of self-discovery that we can't do without. And then the more this vibrational thing starts to happen, the ego can still judge the form like, you gotta be kidding me. Usually sometimes you meet somebody and there's something there, and the ego's like thinking, you gotta be kidding. There's no way I have an assignment with this one.
I've been through that.
And then it's like, and then it's but it it starts to dawn at some point. There's something very purposeful and meaningful there.